Good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Renee Cannon. I'm the pastor of the Temple of Praise Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is located in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm back again with our treasurer and our economist, Dr. Walter Simmons, and we're here for another issue, another episode rather of Money Matters, where we break down financial topics and such. So that you are able to apply them to your own lives. And one thing I guarantee is, should you apply those things which you are learning and taking in here, that you will see great changes made in your lives. And it is our hope that once you have seen those changes, that you would turn around and give God the glory.
Yes, indeed.
Unto his name. Now, I want to go ahead and get to a spiritual nugget before we start. I'll read the whole verse for you, but I'll put this short portion of it. I'm coming out of the book of Hosea, and from there I want to read from chapter 4 and verse 6. I've got the New King James Version of the Bible. It says this: "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." It says, "Because you have rejected knowledge, I also will reject you from being priest for me. Because you have forgotten the law of your God, I also will forget your children." And I just want to focus on this portion, Doc. My people are destroyed.
Yes, indeed.
Lack of knowledge. And here, God is rebuking the priests. And the problems he's having with the priests is they're not teaching the people the Torah or the law of God. And back then, they had to be taught by priests because they lived in a society in which the majority of the people were not able to read. And even if you could read, it was not guaranteed that you would have a copy or even having access to scripture. So therefore, it was the responsibility of the priest to teach the people of the law of God. And because the priests were not teaching the people of the law of God, the people were sinning and therefore destroying themselves because of what they did not know. Now, this shows us that their lack of knowledge is what led to their destruction. In today's world, we have some parallels. Though we are, a largely literate people in the United States, we have, access to the internet, and we have libraries and such. And because of this, we have no excuse to be without knowledge. We have no excuse to not have spent some time, researching topics, especially those that are important and critical for our lives. And because of this, when you fail to educate yourselves and such, when you fail to learn that what you need to know, you too will find yourself destroyed for a lack of knowledge. I need you to hear me today clearly. What you don't know about health, it will destroy you. What you don't know about the efficacy or efficiency of vaccines and such, it will destroy you. What you don't know about relationships, it will ruin your marriage. And likewise, that which you don't know about money, it will destroy you. I need you to get this thing in your head this evening. What you don't know won't just hurt you, but it will kill you and destroy you. And therefore, I believe it is incumbent or important for us today to have an understanding, to have a knowledge about what finance is and what it means for us, especially in this topic today, as we're going to look at the topic of the factors of poverty. I'm going to go ahead and yield the space right now and go ahead and take us ahead, rather at this point, Dr. Simmons.
Pastor, you brought up some important points here. You talked about what we do not know, and we are guilty. Our churches, our leaders are guilty in terms of our people, especially our African American folks. We have not been taught, or leaders, We have not been taught at the home how to manage our resources.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just talking about finance, I'm talking about our healthcare. We don't have been taught how to manage our relationships effectively. But they all are integrated. And we know that, hey,
And let me
despite having access, the most powerful country in the world, we have access to all sorts of information, but we still remain ignorant of a lot of things. I know you wanted to say something. Go right ahead,
Yeah,
Pastor.
yeah. I just want to stick here. I think you brought something up, that it's needed. It's a bit critical, but it is needed today. You talked about religious leaders, and almost, in comparison to the priests then, they were not teaching the people the law. And because they didn't teach the people the law, the people in turn were destroyed. And like you said, one of the things that we have been guilty of is not putting those things forward, in talking or emphasizing, some of the giving aspects and some of those things which are good for our church without turning around and letting people know, what it is that they can do with the 90% of the money that they have, or without letting people know, how you take care of business when it comes to your health and your home, so on and so forth. But one of the things I have been seeing, online, as well as what we have here going with Money Matters, is there are a lot of people in this season that are branching out into different territories. I got a friend, Pastor Tina Carragher, down in Springfield, Tennessee, outside of Nashville. And one of the things she had an actual, like, a first time home buyers course. And I thought that was wonderful, teaching people what they did not know. She had a realtor and such come on and talk to
Correct,
people about
correct,
what they didn't
definitely.
know. Uh-huh. So some more of these type of things, we should get specific and really helping the people to understand some of these topics.
And Pastor, what we're saying is this: in a country like the United States, we shouldn't have over 37 million people living in poverty. And what we're talking about is like the poverty threshold, which is
Mm-hmm.
about $25,700, right? A year. I mean, how could we have about 37 million people living in poverty? That means you're working, you have a full time job, and you still cannot sustain yourself and your family. So that's what, and we know that there are systemic, cultural, structural impediments, that prevents us from moving forward. But those are given. Most of those may never disappear in our lifetime. So the question becomes, how do we navigate those things? How do we sustain ourselves in a very efficient way? How do we maximize our existence? And it boils down to, Pastor, knowledge, 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 and the application of it. Because if you look at the world in general, right, Pastor, we have about let's say 7.8 billion people. About 2 billion of them live in, absolute poverty. Absolute poverty means you're poor and you're gonna die tomorrow. I mean, you are gonna die. The lack of the basic food, shelter, and clothing, that does not exist.
Mm.
We still have over a billion people living like that in the world. The good thing about the United States, whether we like it or not, what we have in the United States is more of what we call more relative poverty.
Yeah.
You're going to die more from the consequences of poverty: lack of health care, lack of education, not getting the best job, not
Mm.
living in the best homes. While in third world countries, people die from, I don't have food, you
Mercy.
know, I don't have shelter. We are dying from the consequences. You know, for example, if you look at it, we are the country that have, think of it, let's take healthcare. We are the most obese country in the world. How do you become obese? Because we are consuming unhealthy foods. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there is no other country in the world where you have fat, poor people. The United States is the only country in the world that has fat, obese, poor people.
And I
You
think some of it, when you look at the obesity and such amongst poor people, it comes from, well, like you were talking about, the consequences of the
Yes,
poverty.
the structural consequences,
Right. So you don't
not
have
only by their design, but by society's design also now.
right, right,
You are
right.
trapped we in economics we call it the poverty trap. You're trapped, and the system. And people say, no, it's not systemic. Of course, it is systemic. Because we, from slavery and so on, we've been put in that state. And the question is, how do we escape it? How do we come out of it? It's a difficult thing, but it is doable. And again, that's where knowledge comes in. Pastor, that's where we go and we get. And I sent you something about the steps that we can take. For example, education, fundamental to getting out of poverty. How can we, how can you get out of poverty? Well, education. And education does not mean you have to get a degree. Education means improving your human capital, acquiring skills and so on, to escape. The other thing, we have to learn how to live healthier.
And I'm going to get to that that factors of poverty and dealing with the education. Some of it is knowing where to find what it is that you need. So, being aware, that there are social services and such that are able to help you with X, Y, and Z. Being aware that somebody is giving, a grant or going to issue some money.
Definitely.
Knowing where to find what it is that you need.
And it's available to us too, But again, you talked about a friend of yours talking about first-time home buyers.
Yes.
There's a national association. I remember my daughter Megan. It's available. You can go to Nugget, and you could get some really good guidance and mentorship into buying a home. But again, we do not have that information. We lack that information. It's there free. Other factors we can talk about: social injustice. We see that, that's rampant today, right? The one that really passed, how could we lack food and water and shelter and clothing? Those are basic things. But I guarantee you again, it's not that we are not able to produce the food. It's not that we are not able to produce the water. It's available. But we have so many structural impediments. Who gets it? When do you get it? There's a book called The White Man's Burden. And in that book, the author talks about how come in Scotland, a woman writes a book called Harry Potter. And that book sold millions of copies around the world. I mean, people found out about that book. They bought it. It was about witchcraft and sorcery and so on. They bought that book. But we couldn't find enough money to save a child in poverty in sub-Saharan Africa. We didn't know that they exist. So what we do, we have filters. We decide, we decide where we want. It's not lack, but we make what we call rational decisions to take care of certain things. How come Harry Potter sells millions of dollars all over the world? But we can't solve the problem in Sudan, South Sudan, and some of our developing countries that have those problems. So those are, when we talk about the systematic and so on, those are there. Lack of government support, lack of good health care. And today we are witnessing what we call inflation, high cost. Even if you're working, you can't afford it.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the gas, look at milk, look at basic fundamental things.
I went to the store the other day. Well, last week, they just brought it down. They had a watermelon in the store for $10. I bought it when it went down to $8.99. I said, when they brought it down $1, then I bought it.
And who bears the brunt of it is those that live in poverty.
That's right.
But having said all this, we are still a blessed nation. We are still a blessed nation. We are still the nation of the world in the world that produces the most amount of food. We are still benevolent. So, what's the admonition for us? The question becomes, how do we go about, despite those impediments, how do we go about navigating the process? And what it means is that, Pastor, it always comes down to the individual and our mentors in our society. That includes our pastors, our teachers, our elders, and so on. We need better leadership to inform our people that, listen, we have to take responsibility. You know, we have to do that. Depending on the government, stimulus money is good because that's our money. We must always remember that. That's our tax money. you know. But you cannot only depend on that. You have to depend on the initiative that you take. But how do they know it if we don't teach them?
Right.
We have to teach. We have to make people aware that those things are available. Information, information. There is so much of it, and we lack in so much of it. That's the irony of it. So much of it is available, but doesn't matter. It's available, but we're not utilizing it, and we're not utilizing it effectively. So how do we get out of poverty? Well, we talked about education. We also talked about, you know, looking at ourselves and making some investment in ourselves. We have to. That means we have to. I'm very basic. Read more, get involved more. You know, volunteer, do some networking. You know, find something that has some type of value. Remember last week we talked about monetizing your talents, monetizing the gifts that you have. Don't take it for granted. Invest in yourself, invest in someone, invest in a young person. you know let's bring those resources together. And I think our institutions, our churches, our community centers, we have to do more of that. Instead of depending on, okay, what others will do, what are we going to do? Because again, the information is there, but how do we bring that information, to the people and get it to be implemented? Because we can talk about it over and over, but at the end of the day, it has to be implemented. So we have to be more process and operationally oriented. Sometimes I think as Black folks, we talk a lot about things, but we don't make it operational, implementation, because there have to be a system. For everything, there is a system, an operation. What's the supply chain? How do we take it from the beginning to the end? From the field to the consumer. From that idea that you have, I'm thinking about it. How do I take it to the market?
Right.
How do I scale that idea?
Right.
And that's what we need. Those are the things that will take us from poverty. You look at countries that have developed, poverty is always alleviated from internal. Nobody can come and take you from poverty. If you look at individuals, they have left the inner city, they moved on, they get education. Now people are helping you along the way, but no system can take you from poverty.
Yeah, that's right. I see it because I appreciate the conversations that go on about ideas, and I appreciate governmental push, but at the same time, I realize that even as we push for certain things, which are right, that they're not going to come. So on one end you push, but on the other end you need to be pulling yourself in that direction as well, because I know that as a people we've seen it here for long enough, that how long these things take. We get a break every now and then, but it's after 20 and 30 years of people pushing for this thing.
Correct. And we need to push because we have to, because we cannot negate the political process.
Right.
The political process. The political process. That's why there is so much money in it, because there are tremendous benefits. And that's what we have. That's the earth we live on. That's Caesar's world. So we have to live. We're living in Caesar's world, so we have to live by Caesar's rule.
That's right.
And the rule said the politicking is important.
Absolutely.
But we have to be wise as to how we do the politicking. We can't stay away from the politicking. That would just lead us more down the road to poverty.
We can't do that.
We have to embrace it, and we have to use it wisely and effectively if we want those results. But it all boils down to, again, I say, is that individuals being disciplined, individuals being able to gather information, utilize that information, monetize their skills, and talents and abilities and so on. But that cannot take place in a vacuum, Pastor. We have to create the environment for
Right.
our young people to do it. We have to create that environment, and it's a big task, but it's
Well,
a task that's very doable.
because I'm tuned in with different people that run nonprofits and do such things. My brother, he has a nonprofit in Chicago called The Block, which is very successful and helping kids to go off to college and use boxing as the tool to do that. But the question I know that we have a lot of clergy that listening to us. As churches, how do we become institutions that can really lead the people out of that, beyond, because I would do my best to try to educate folk and things like that. But how do we become institutions that people can come to and really begin to better their lives?
Because, Pastor, the reality is that most of us coming from single homes,
Mhm.
so we're not getting everything from home. So we can't say we'll live it up to the home. So
Right.
I think the church plays a pivotal role because in the church we have people from all walks of life,
Yes.
from all type of socioeconomic group, right? So that's where our leadership becomes very important.
Mm.
Yes, we have the religious part, we have the evangelical part, but we should also have the health part. We should also have the financial part. We should also have the social work part. We are not just the spiritual. That's not sufficient in today's world.
Right.
That just wouldn't cut it. We have to be more comprehensive, and we have to get more people involved in
Hmm.
a meaningful way, not as a sidekick. Saying, okay, well, brother, this. It has to be now. All this, some of it is kind of philosophical, but some of that is already taking place in some of the churches. You see some of those churches and so on being so comprehensive, because that's the only way some of our citizens, especially we are black folks, get to participate in the process.
Right. Because I view it the same way. I think that a person, when they come into the church, that they should be able to see blessings in every area of their lives, and
Correct.
a lot of those blessings God is going to use the people of the church as the vehicles to make those things happen. One of the things I would love to see happen, even in our time here, is if we can be the spot where these job fairs and all of those things begin to take place from. And I know we have individuals that have done those things in the past, but to continue in that tradition, to really be a blessing to the people, I think that would be awesome.
And I think past eight will, because I think we will become the catalyst for those things. I
Mhm.
mean, if you build it, they will come because people are looking for those opportunities and they're looking for it in a non-judgmental way. They're looking for it in a secure environment, in an uplifting environment. And I think that our churches can provide that platform,
Mhm.
and I also think the responsibility is on individuals too, because we have a tendency to hide and to hold when we know something we don't want to share, not realizing that as we share and we expand and as we scale, everyone benefits instead of
Everybody.
holding that information. So
Hmm.
again, it goes back to good individual and collective stewardship. You know, not only about what you do as an individual, but what we do collectively for the community, for our society, for our surrounding neighbors. I think those things would have impact. But again, it depends. It not depends, but it's a collaborative effort between the individual, the pastor, the community leaders. But we have to start where we are, pastor.
That's right.
We have to start where we are, and we can build on that. But where we are now, we have a pastor who runs our churches, and we have individuals in the church. That's what we have. So we can
Mhm.
start from there,
Mm.
start the different ministries, and then we can expand on that.
Absolutely.
But one more point I want to make though is that people use that text all the time. The prosperity gospel have a different take on it. But I believe that the way our society is structured, we will always have people living in some measure of poverty.
Mhm.
The question becomes, how much of that do we want to tolerate in our society? I think that's the question.
Uh-huh. Mm.
I think that's really the question.
Yeah.
And in a prosperous country like that, like the United States, there is no reason. because our problem is a human problem. It's not about food, We can produce food.
That's
We
right.
produce enough food to feed the world.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the food. The question is, who is getting the food? How much are they paying for it? You know, and so the burden is always on the poor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the poor has to find a way out of that, and they
Right.
can't do it by themselves. They
That's
need
right.
leadership, they need guidance, and I think that's where we have to put our focus.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One hand reaches down, but the other hand reaches up. And together, we can really make some change for the people. And I really believe that by tuning in, especially some of these live sessions, some the jewels that have been dropped here. I really believe that applying these principles to your life will be something that will change the financial trajectory of your entire life. So I encourage you, if you haven't been
Definitely.
with us, go back, listen to every session, take some notes and such, because, part of this, again, one of the factors of poverty being, the lack of education. This is, free education. There's free knowledge that's been given out by a subject matter expert on the topic. So please, I implore you to go back and listen to
Indeed.
previous sessions. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up at this point. But as always, we thank you for coming on. And if you have been blessed, one of the things that we encourage, Dr. Simmons, he hit it when he said, it's not good for you to hoard, things to yourself and such. We all come up when we share with one another. So we encourage you to share or pass this on. You can do it by hitting the share button
That's
on
right.
your screen. If it's YouTube and such, you can send that link on to somebody else who's able to catch it. Also, if we have been a blessing unto you and you want to be a blessing unto us, you can do this a few ways. One of the ways is by hitting up our cash app. We got our cash tag scrolling across the bottom of the screen here. That's cash tag $ Temple of Praise SDA Church. We got a window project still going on and such. If you want to give there, just write windows, or you can write tithe, offering, whatever the Lord has moved you to give. Put it in that cash app. You can also do the same by visiting www.adventistgiving.org. Type in the Temple of Praise Seventh-day Adventist Church. Once you get there, you can click local offerings. You can click that category, or you can give to the conference there if that's how the Lord is moving you. Or you can visit us or mail this thing in. We are the Temple of Praise Seventh-day Adventist Church. We're located in 1985 Green Road, Cleveland, Ohio, 44121. Our Sabbath service begins on Saturdays at noon. Our doors will be open around 11:30 and such. And I also want to let you know today that you got an opportunity to tune in with us on Tuesday nights. On every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. And I even got my, I'm at the bottom now. I'm even got a picture on this thing. So I'm officially part of, this ministry and such. So Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. You'll be able to watch this on my page, but it's primarily running from the Patmos Chapel. That's a Seventh-day Adventist church outside of Orlando, Florida. And as always, on Wednesdays, rather, at 7 p.m., we have our prayer meeting. I'll put that in the comments, the link there. We'll be live at 7:30, but from 7 to 7:30, we're sharing prayer requests and testimonies and such via Zoom. It's private so that everything doesn't get out to everybody. But again, we thank you so much for tuning in with us this
Indeed.
and encourage you to be back every Thursday at 7 p.m. And we're going to be looking at putting together, some a written form of this that you'll be able to get for yourself and for your churches as well. That's coming soon. But again, thank you so much. It was good being with you. God bless you. And we'll see you next week.
Amen. See you guys.